This is Ambassador Mello's first official visit to Victoria. I had the pleasure of having a courtesy call with her earlier today. So again, let's welcome the Ambassador. So again, let's welcome introductions by members.
Up in the gallery, I saw my old friend Sue Hamill, who represented Surrey Green Timber for many years in this place. She was Minister for Women's Equality, and I think that it is safe to give her, and obviously a number of other people, but significant credit for the number of women sitting on them, sitting in the legislature, sitting in the Legislative Assembly. Her work, particularly on the equity mandate for the NDP, to ensure that we better reflected the makeup of the province. I wanted to make sure that was on the record. And would the House please join me in making Sue feel very welcome to come back.
House Leader of the Official Opposition.
Running for a number of years, and to Sabrina, Amanda, Cecilia, Molly, Tasha, Sydney, and Riley, I'd like the House to make them very welcome and welcome the future of British Columbia.
Minister of Forests.
Thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to be able to welcome to the House today a good friend of mine, someone I've gotten a chance to get to know these last couple of months, the Mayor of Vanderhoof, Kevin Moutre. Kevin, it's good to see you. I'm looking forward to meeting with you later today with some of my colleagues. So the House, please join me in making him feel very welcome.
Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And today we also have another special guest who is a former member of the legislature. Gwen O'Mahony was here. She served as Chilliwack, served one of the MLAs from Chilliwack in her time, and somebody who, of course, ran for us in the last election. And I know she's doing great work in terms of this between this last election and now. And she continues to advocate for the things that are right in this province. And with her is also Frenchie Viho. I hope I've got that name right in terms of it. Would the House please make them both very welcome?
Minister of Jobs and Economic Development.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's my pleasure today to introduce a constituent and her guest, Patricia Lane and Siobhan O'Donoghue. Patricia is a community support activist and lawyer, and through her work and her engagement in the community has done so much it's beyond possible to list her contributions. Things from the boards of Sierra Club and Clean Energy Canada to one of our largest credit unions. And Siobhan is visiting from Ireland, where she's worked with community organizations doing things like working with migrant workers, and is here to meet with the University of Victoria and community partners. Would the House welcome my guest today?
Member for Kelowna Mission.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our Conservative caucus was very pleased today to welcome Sam Howard, Ryan Mitten, and Emily Boston from the Canadian Federation of Independent Business to speak with us about the importance of addressing red tape, taxes, and trade barriers. Would the House please join me in a very raucous round of applause in support of their efforts to champion Canadian businesses and shopping local?
Member for North Vancouver Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions today. The first was we had breakfast this morning with the resident doctors of BC, and it's my pleasure to introduce the many representatives from the resident doctors of BC who are joining us in the gallery today. The President, Adib Malis, the past President, Dr. Harris Anzinger, and the Executive Director and my colleague, Lona Cunningham, came with other members from the board to meet with the MLAs and share their experiences. Resident Doctors of BC supports residents in fulfilling their education to become well-informed, prepared, and professional physicians in enhancing patient care. We are so grateful for all the advocacy and work that they do for our residents' doctors, who are an essential part of our healthcare system. Would the House please join me in making them feel very welcome? And my second introduction, we had lunch today, hosted by the Alzheimer's Society, and there were a great number of members from the Alzheimer's Society and a great many people from this House. We all know that the Alzheimer's Society contributes a lot to the support of a whole group of people in our province, a group of people that is growing, both the clients themselves who have Alzheimer's and those that provide the care and support. So I would ask the House to make a warm welcome for the folks from the Alzheimer's.
Hi there. Leading off with your lovely introduction, I'd also like to reach out to the Alzheimer's Society. I don't think there's anybody in this House who doesn't know somebody that's been affected or is affected. So I'd like to introduce Jennifer Lyle, Paula Brill, Rebecca Frederick, and Jim Mann, who are doing some amazing work advancing that cause across our province. Please make them feel welcome.
Member for Burnaby East. Sorry, Burnaby North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have two introductions to make today. Firstly, I'd like to introduce Michelle Cook, the CEO of Seton Villa, which is located in Burnaby North, and her partner, Frank Duong. Please join me in welcoming them. My second introduction, I'd also like to welcome these incredible young women in the gallery who are part of the Indigenous Youth Internship Program within the Government of British Columbia. They are Sabrina Moshenko, Cecilia Raweeder, Molly Taylor, Tasha Griffins-Leclerc, Sydney Herrikel, and Riley Swan, and they are accompanied by the program lead, Amanda Sylvester. These incredible young women are hosted at the Legislative Assembly on a one-day twinning program by our British Columbia branch of Commonwealth Women Parliamentarians. And while they're here, they have an opportunity to spend time with women MLAs to learn about our role and life as women parliamentarians. Please join me in giving them a very warm welcome.
Thank you, Burnaby North. Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's been a tremendous honor this week to have lots of family in attendance from the East Kootenays. Just a couple of more quick introductions. Aunt Marianne Pastor is here today, and unfortunately she couldn't be in the building, but Ellie Nyman, another family member I know is watching at home with the House. Please make them feel welcome today. Thank you.
Member for Ladysmith Oceanside.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I want to start by thanking the Minister of Forests for allowing me to do this introduction today. In the House, we have a very special guest, Dr. Colin Monty, who is a registered forest professional. Professional forester, sorry. Colin is an important person in my life because he introduced me to my husband. Do you remember that? That is worth applause in itself. Our friendship spans over 20 years. It includes owning property together. It includes raising our babies together, who are not now babies anymore, building off-grid cabins together. And when Colin was in his 20s, he circumnavigated Vancouver Island in a kayak solo. He's a pretty awesome person. But that's not why we're going to give him applause today. We are going to give Colin applause because it is with great pride that I introduce Dr. Colin Monty as the 2024 Forest Professional of the Year. Look at us, we're all grown up, Colin. He was awarded by the Forest Professionals of BC for outstanding service to the profession of forestry and the principles of forest professionals of British Columbia. Dr. Monty, or Sea Dog, or Sea Money as he is known in our circles, is currently a research climatologist and team lead with the Future Forest Ecosystems Centre in the Office of British Columbia's Chief Forester. His team is working to properly integrate climate change data as decision tools in ecosystem management, putting usable climate data in the hands of practitioners, allowing them to make immediate difference on the ground within BC's forests. Dr. Mani is a province-wide leader in climate science with over 25 years of forestry experience. Colin, I am so proud to stand here today and acknowledge your tremendous accomplishments. Would the House please join me in congratulating Dr. Mani for his incredible contributions to BC's forests.
Member for Vancouver Strathcona.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to specifically have you welcome Cecilia Rowider. She has her Bachelor of Arts in First Nations and Indigenous Studies and will be going to UBC taking her Master's there. So please join me in welcoming Cecilia. Thank you, thank you.
Member for Kootenay Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that all of us would agree that we wouldn't be here or wouldn't be able to do our jobs without our amazing legislative assistants that work behind the scenes for us. And today I'm honored to have my legislative assistant here, Pega. And I just wanted to say thank you very much for everything you do. I think that we should give all of our legislative assistants a big hand for the work that they do to support us. Thank you.
Minister of Social Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is not a controversial introduction at all. The Health Minister has asked me to invite the House to warmly welcome the Denman Island Seniors Pickleball Group. These are committed community volunteers. Sue Hamill, who the Premier has already introduced, Vicky Ryle, Marina Reed, Paul and Suzanne Beauchemin, C. Ray, and Steve Eberly. Will the House please welcome the Denman Island Seniors Pickleball Association.
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to speak to someone who is watching our proceedings from an unusually elegant office in Vancouver today. This well-known and successful businessman yesterday met with another large investor and challenged him. He said, "This week, I've invested in 3 BC companies, one in cybersecurity, one in medical devices, and one in traditional industry, BC all." He said, "Now is the time for people who've been successful in this bountiful province to give back. This action is by BC, its patriotism, and its leadership." And this gentleman doesn't want recognition. But on behalf of British Columbia, I want to thank him and encourage all others in his position to do the same and accept the Invest BC challenge.
Now Burnaby East.
Burnaby East for real. Honourable Speaker, I want to take a second to also shout out Sabrina Mashenko, who is from Burnaby, is the first person in her family to graduate with a degree in sociology. So let's please give her a super warm welcome. And my colleague back here, of course.
You know, quite interestingly enough, every time I watch these, for a half an hour, at least 25 minutes every day, they just recognize people that have come to visit. That's a lot of time wasted. A lot of time wasted.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move that a bill entitled the Mental Health Amendment Act 2025, of which notice has been given in my name on the order paper, be introduced and read a first time now. The Mental Health Amendment Act 2025 aims to improve communication between close relatives and healthcare providers when a person is brought to the hospital in a mental health crisis, and upon their release if they've been certified under the Mental Health Act. The amendments proposed in this bill will reduce the risk of suicide and self-harm. These amendments are also an important addition to public safety measures, as they assist with mental health assessments for people who pose a risk to harming others. On February 26th, a man allegedly in drug psychosis was apprehended following 2 home invasions where he brutally assaulted a senior and terrorized an entire neighborhood. The man was taken to the hospital to be assessed, and while in hospital, that man assaulted a police officer by choking and attempting to disarm them of their gun. He was subsequently charged with multiple violent offenses. Days after the initial incident, my office was contacted by a close relative of this very troubled individual. The family member had important information that they wanted to share regarding what they felt was an escalating risk to public safety, and they'd not been contacted by the hospital or police. The Mental Health Amendment Act 2025 would have necessitated this valuable information sharing. As this government moves forward with involuntary care, the Mental Health Amendment Act 2025 can assure that doctors and nurse practitioners have more information to help them in their assessments, keeping people with mental illness and the public safe. I hope members from both sides of this chamber will support this important bill.
Member, the question is the first reading of the bill. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Member.
Honourable Speaker, I move that the bill be placed on the orders of the day for second reading at the next sitting of the House after today.
You have heard the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Madam Clerk.
Statements by members.
Member for Surrey Newton.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to recognize the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which is taking place on March 21st. This is a day to reflect on the deep injustices that persist in our society, and it is a call to action to urgently confront racism in all its forms. As a human rights lawyer in my former life, and now as the Parliamentary Secretary for Anti-Racism Initiatives, I know that discrimination is not a thing of the past. It is woven into the systems and structures that continue to create barriers for Indigenous, Black, and racialized people. It appears in hate-motivated violence, inequities in education, employment, and healthcare, and in everyday experiences of people who are made to feel like they don't belong. Racism does not persist by accident. It continues when we fail to confront it directly, when injustice is met with silence, and when the voices of those who are most affected are ignored. Our government is taking action on this. Through the Anti-Racism Act, we are developing stronger protections against hate and ensuring racialized communities are collaboratively involved in leading this process. But let's be clear, there is no room for racism in our society. We cannot look away when people spread hate, and we cannot be bystanders when discrimination happens in our communities, in our workplaces, or even in this very legislature. The fight against racism requires all of us to speak up and take action, not just when it is easy, but more importantly, when it is hard. Eliminating racial discrimination is not going to happen overnight. It is the work of our lifetime. But if we are truly committed to justice, we must be relentless. The future of the province will not be written by fear or division. It will be defined by the courage of those who refuse to accept anything less than equity, dignity, and justice for all people. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Langley Walnut Grove.
Thank you. I stand here today to highlight some inaccuracies spoken in this chamber. I believe it is our duty to speak the truth, while also highlighting our communities. You see, Mr. Speaker, twice in as many weeks I have heard from the Minister of Forestry infer that his community is the place to be for sports in this province. But that is just factually incorrect. And now I will spend the next minute and a half and show you that it is indeed Langley, the best place for sports. For a community of 155,000 people, Langley has 6 semi-professional or professional sports teams. That's right, folks. We have the Vancouver Giants from the WHL, the Langley Rivermen from the BCHL, a PJHL team with the Langley Trappers, the newest CPL team, Vancouver FC, the Vancouver Bandits, which is a CEBL team, and the Langley Thunder, a WLA team. That's 3 hockey teams, a basketball team, a soccer team, and a lacrosse team. Langley is the place to be on the weekend. These teams have notable alumni like Ethan Iannucci, Evander Kane, DJ Stewart, Gail Sandoval, Dante Fabro, and many, many others throughout the sports world.
She just brought up Evander Kane's name.
In their off time, volunteering or backing local charitable organizations. Many team owners are local or regional members rooted in both business and philanthropic works in our community. The Be a Giant Foundation, the Bandits Community Foundation, the Take Flight Ticket Donation Initiative, the Coats for Kids program, food bank drives, and unhoused resource supports are just a few ways that these teams give back to the Langley community. So why is it that teams and organizations are flocking to Langley? Well, it is arguably the most awesome place to live. But besides that, it is also its grade A facilities, like the Langley Event Center with its courts, ice sheets, stadium, and new progressing 5 dry ice sheets and arena. But most of all, it's its very enthusiastic community that is so supportive of the local sports scene. So, in closing, although I have not had a chance to research the teams that Minister Parmar's community has, let it be known here in this chamber that I would love a friendly jersey exchange in the event of a win if 2 of our teams shall ever meet. And perhaps, maybe, just perhaps, he too can catch a glimpse of the great Canadian Michael Bublé, co-owner of the Vancouver Giants, in the event he wants to see some top-notch hockey in my hometown of Langley. Bring it on.
Member for Nanaimo Lansville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our journey through life begins and ends in the care of our healthcare workers. They are there from our first breath to our final moments and every stage in between. They are the steady hands that heal, the voices that comfort, and the advocates who fight for our well-being. And nearly 5 years ago this March, they carried us through one of the most uncertain times in modern history. I know firsthand the impact of their care. A couple years ago, I had emergency surgery at Nanaimo Regional General Hospital, and it was the skill, compassion, and dedication of the nurses, doctors, and frontline healthcare workers that ensured that I and so many others got the care that we needed. For that, I will always be grateful. There are times when the demands on them are greater than ever, when hospital hallways are crowded, when exhaustion is heavy, and when uncertainty fills the air. But our healthcare workers do not walk away. They stay and they step up. Because even when the world feels uncertain, they remain the certainty we rely on. To those who say our healthcare system is broken, I say to them, it is strong because of the people who dedicate their lives to it. Whether it's the nurse in the emergency room, a pharmacist ensuring the right medication, an oncologist delivering life-saving care, or a medical stenographer keeping accurate records. They are the foundation of our system. We must never take them for granted. We must never forget their sacrifices. We must never allow supporting them to become a partisan issue. Because no matter who we are or where we come from, when we or our loved ones need care, our healthcare workers show up for us. So as British Columbians once did collectively every evening at 7 p.m., I ask all members of this House to show their appreciation today and every day to all of our frontline healthcare workers. We see you, we thank you, and we stand with you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for West Vancouver, Capilano.
Honourable Speaker, I rise today to recognise an outstanding constituent in my riding of West Vancouver Capilano, Colin Metcalf, who has been awarded the King Charles Coronation Medal, a well-deserved honour. Colin is a highly respected corporate affairs specialist with an impressive career spanning both the public and private sectors. His expertise in speech writing, politics, policy analysis, and crisis communications has made him a trusted voice in business and government relations. A seasoned political veteran and a past member of Vancouver's Power 50, as recognized by BC Business Magazine, Colin has consistently demonstrated leadership not only in his professional life, but also in his community. Colin has held positions such as Special Assistant to the Ministry of Fisheries and Oceans, Honourable John Crosby. He's been the Director of Communications with the BC Lions Football Club, Director of Communications for the Vancouver Whitecaps, and was Vice President of Corporate Affairs for Ridley Terminals, to name just a few of the roles he's held that have showcased his talent. Currently, he serves on the Board of Directors of the Vancouver Club, chairing its Governance Committee, and leads his local community association as president, always finding ways to give back and strengthen the place we call home. Today, I celebrate Colin Metcalfe's remarkable contributions to both his community and our province. Congratulations, Colin. This honor is a reflection of your dedication and service. Would the members please join me in congratulating Colin on this prestigious award? Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Member for Burnaby North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me introduce you to one of my favorite neighbors. Seton Villa is a unique, non-profit retirement center that provides affordable housing for 225 seniors. On 3 floors are 28 assisted living units. Residents live independently on the remaining 18 floors. The Seton Villa bus takes residents shopping and to events. The dining room offers 3 meals a day, and almost everything is made from scratch. The 19th floor penthouse is a huge meeting area with panoramic views. It's equipped with a pool table and exercise equipment. Residents meet there for coffee, chair yoga, active games, and happy hours. We celebrate special events like Remembrance Day, Pride Day, and International Women's Day. The residents have their own organization called the Villagers. They personally greet and integrate new members to make them feel at home. Many languages are spoken by the staff. Some staff members have worked there for 30 or 40 years. Many young people in the neighborhood get their first job at Seton Villa. Some of my other neighbors serve on their board and/or have dreams of moving there someday. Seton Villa is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Many of them are lifelong Burnaby residents, like Joanne, who remembers when this 3rd largest city in the province was a wilderness. Another resident still remembers the trauma of searching for bodies when the Second Narrows Bridge collapsed. He was only 15 at the time. The average age of Seton Villa residents is now 87. The eldest will be 107 next month. People are living longer today, and most residents use a walker. The tiny elevators can't accommodate wheelchairs. Luckily, a 4-story expansion will be, that's under construction, will be wheelchair accessible. When my helijet from Victoria turns into the harbour tomorrow morning, and I see Seton Villa on the hill in the distance, I'll know I'm home. Thank you.
Member for Penticton Summerland.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to speak from the heart on a very important, specific element of the reconciliation process, economic reconciliation. Reconciliation isn't a token phrase to use when we seek to connect meaning to the actions of government with the first peoples of our province and Canada. Reconciliation is the act of acknowledging and recognizing the past harms inflicted, in particular by the residential school system. Trauma from the residential school system is intergenerational and exists today. It persists in the hearts and minds of Indigenous people in every corner of this province. Sadly, many Indigenous people still feel disconnected, invisible, and ignored. Land is identity. Land is community. Land is past, present, and future, and self-determination. Economic reconciliation is about fostering relationships, about having difficult conversations to find solutions together. As the former Lieutenant Governor Stephen Point said, we cannot turn back the clock 100 years, but we can envision a plan for the next 100 working hand in hand with the First Peoples of BC and enriching all of our lives socially, culturally, and economically. But for economic reconciliation to work, we must listen first. We were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, and that means listening more than we speak. And that means listening to survivors. May we all do a lot more listening in the months and years ahead. Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Oral questions by members?
Leader of the official opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All right, let's see what's going to happen.
When I asked the Premier about SOGI and the sexualization of children in our schools, the Premier said raising this issue was, and I quote, cultural war and feeds the fires of division. Yesterday, we learned from the Minister of Education that this government is reviewing SOGI to make it more age appropriate. Will the Premier now admit that he was wrong to characterize concerned parents as being hateful?
Wow, good job.
Premier.
We have a huge interest in making sure that all kids feel safe at school, regardless of who they are, where their origin is, and I regret very much the member of the opposition, members of his caucus, have repeatedly distorted a program that, by the way, the Leader of the Opposition stood behind, endorsed, supported as a member of the Cabinet for many years. It caused fear among parents, particularly among parents from new arrival communities just arriving in BC, trying to figure out the school system, and then they hear about this horrific program. It's actually an anti-bullying program, Honourable Speaker, to protect kids.
Program.
He and his colleagues promoted that hate and fear in our communities, and now, unsurprisingly, we have to go through and do some work with communities. Was at a far-right event called We Unify. She was on a 3-person panel, one of whom was discredited Alberta doctor, Dr. William Mackis. She's the health critic. He said COVID-19 vaccines are neither safe nor effective. On Monday, he posted an article claiming the vaccine causes AIDS. Honourable Speaker, that was Monday. And related to SOGI...
Member.
Well, what did you say on the panel,
Members.
And after his medical license was cancelled, he said...
Premier.
After his medical license was cancelled, he said the Alberta College of Physicians and Surgeons should be renamed, quote, the College of Pedophiles and Child Sex Abusers. This is who the health critic for the opposition sat beside at a panel yesterday. That's the kind of hate they promote.
He gets so flipping mad, but he can't be mad because he's just not a tough guy.
Leader of the official opposition, supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, it's pretty clear the Premier will not apologize to parents that he called hateful. But regardless of that, Mr. Speaker, I do have perhaps a different angle to take on this. So yesterday, the Minister of Education said, and I quote, the Minister is working towards a provincial framework that includes specific criteria ensuring age-appropriate materials are in school. End quote. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister commit today to having parents decide what is age-appropriate material in our schools?
They won't do that.
Mr. Premier.
The Leader of the Opposition and his colleagues are repeatedly promoting disinformation, misleading parents, misleading British Columbians about everything from SOGI to what's happening in our schools. I encourage any parent, if you have concerns about what's happening in a school, talk to your teacher. Talk to your kid's teacher.
You can't talk to the teacher. You got to talk to the director of teachers at the South Slope. Like, all the schools are a mess.
Don't listen to the Leader of the Opposition or his health critic about what's happening in the province. She sits...
Members.
She sits beside a doctor who lied and said that 80 young doctors died from the COVID-19 vaccine. She sat beside a doctor that said COVID-19 vaccines are...
going, he just was asked a straight question and he's going around and around.
Opposition endorses, sits beside, give legitimacy to. What an embarrassment, Honourable Speaker.
Members. Members. Member. Come to order. Premier has the floor. Please.
I'm sure the member will stand up and clarify that she disagreed vehemently with his tweets, with his misrepresentation of vaccines. But will the Leader of the Opposition stand up and denounce her attendance at this conference?
Members. Shh. Members, calm down. Members, you want to ask a question or anybody else? If not, wait for your turn. We'll take care of it. Please conclude.
Now, the member for Kamloops denounced the conference that the health critic was at, calling it, quote, a far-right conference. He said, quote, the Leader of the Opposition must clearly denounce this conference once and for all and explain to British Columbians why he and his candidates endorsed it in the first place. I wonder whether the Leader of the Opposition will denounce this conference and everything that happened at it last night.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Wow,
Members.
Wow, wow.
Members. Please conclude.
Thank you. I hope the Leader of the Opposition denounced the conference and his members' attendance at it.
Member for Chilliwack North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A BC housing project planned for Trethewey and Rowett Avenue is 4 years behind schedule. These 49 units for supportive and complex care are desperately needed for my constituents, both in and around Chilliwack. The closest recovery bed.
What an absolute mess. Why? Yeah, this is a recovery.
Round trip. If one is lucky enough to access one of the only 16 beds. With 0 new recovery beds in BC, in the BC NDP budget, when will this government commit to delivering additional treatment beds?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's refreshing to hear somebody in this place on the opposite side talking about supportive housing and wanting it in their community. Honourable Speaker. You can call this a heritage moment, Honourable Speaker. You can call this a heritage moment. Honourable Speaker, we've been working closely with many community organizations on the ground to support people in Chilliwack in particular. We have a project that's in front of council right now that will help get a lot of people off the streets, and I certainly hope that Mayor and Council approve it. I believe it's coming to Council tonight. I know we've heard from the Mayor there who says they don't want any supportive housing anymore, but there's people in the community that are struggling that need to get supports to get indoors. We offered the city additional supports this year in January, but they declined those supports. But we're going to continue to reach out because in the end of the day, Honourable Speaker, it's the people in the communities that need the service who we are focused on.
Member for Chilliwack North, supplemental.
Thank you for the comments from the Minister. I'm sure that the Mayor who I spoke with yesterday is not in agreement with the statement. The overdose crisis in BC continues to take lives every day. Residents in Hope have no local access to treatment unless they drive 2 hours in a 4-hour round trip in the most trying times of their lives. The window for opportunity is vanishing for vulnerable people. Again, when will this government get serious about funding abstinence-based treatment?
Minister of Housing.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. And again, I think if the member wants to see more supportive housing for vulnerable people in our community, I would welcome a letter.
I'll fucking give you a letter.
Members, let the minister answer, please.
You want a letter?
The Leader of the Opposition says, oh, we don't want supportive housing in the community.
Nobody has to clarify anything. I think Minister has heard the question. Let him
I've heard
answer.
the question. I understand the question. Honourable Speaker, if the member wants to find ways to support vulnerable, I heard the member say we have to support vulnerable people in the community. When you have people that are sleeping in encampments, sleeping in parks, you need them to get into housing. Yes, you need them to get access to treatment. You need to get access to supports. That's what we do with supportive housing. I think the members across the way surely understand that's what supportive housing does, Honourable Speaker. And so if the member wants to advocate for more support for vulnerable people in Hope in particular, I look forward to talking to the member because we want to help those people as well.
House Leader of the Third Party.
Honourable Speaker, as we face down a trade war with the United States, energy security has never been more important. We cannot and must not continue relying on American energy sources. We cannot and must not continue relying on the expansion of climate-killing LNG projects built by foreign companies and subsidized by BC taxpayers. Renewable wind, solar, and geothermal projects are the solution. Recently, BC Hydro, of Site C Dam financial mismanagement infamy, announced with great fanfare that it secured 9 new wind projects at a cost of $5 to $6 billion. Oh my God, this is great. That was the Green Caucus response. There's just one hitch. These projects are 47% to 79% more costly than other comparable wind projects in North America. My question through you to the Premier, what will your government do to rein in BC Hydro and stop overpaying for the clean power we need for BC's energy security?
Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. And Honourable Speaker, I'm surprised at the question from the Honourable Member because I would have thought, think that it's extraordinary, Honourable Speaker, that we approve projects the size in terms of energy of Site C at 45% less than the last call for power in 2009, that are 51% on average owned by First Nations, Honourable Speaker, that have an average levelized cost of $74 per megawatt hour, $6 less than an equivalent call for power in Quebec recently, that this wouldn't be anything else than a success. We need more energy in BC, and we need more renewable energy, and we are just getting started.
Member has supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, BC has legislated targets to reduce emissions by 40% by 2030. About 10% of the planned emissions reduction was to be from increasing the price on carbon pollution. Yet this week, the Premier announced he would scrap the consumer carbon tax. The industrial carbon tax remains, but 2/3 of company emissions are exempted from the tax. There's no way BC is going to meet the 2030 target. The province's most recent climate accountability report says only very minor progress has been made, and that's before LNG Canada comes online. My question is to the Minister of Energy. Will the Minister introduce a regulatory emissions cap for the oil and gas industry this year, as previously promised?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. And as the member will know, and the most recent change to the regulations with respect to methane emissions from the oil and gas sector came in January 1st, that we've reduced methane emissions, for example, by 43% from 2015 levels, which is a significant achievement, not just by the people of BC, by the Clean BC plan, but by the industry itself, Honourable Speaker. That we have to continue again and again, Honourable Speaker, in a province where we've seen an increase in population. In my time on the government side of being close to 1 million people, we've got to continue to take action. It's why reducing our per capita emissions, as we have done significantly, reducing our emissions against GDP, as we have done significantly, continuing to pursue climate programs that are good for the economy, good for the people of the province, and good for their health is our goal. And it's why we're going to work with all members of the legislature, but in particular members of the Green Party, on a joint review of the Clean BC program, which was scheduled for next year and is going to happen this year.
Member for Caribou-Chilcotin.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Imagine 23 vehicles showing up in your yard filled with BC conservation officers wearing tactical equipment, some armed with assault rifles. Mr. Speaker, that is exactly what happened to a constituent in the Caribou last week. He had his windows smashed, doors kicked open, a total of $100,000 of damage done to his home and his property. They seized a cell phone and some paperwork. Mr. Speaker, they embarrassed him and his family. The cause? Incorrectly filled out paperwork. Mr. Speaker, what possible justification does the Minister of Environment have for using paramilitary-style force on any citizen who didn't dot an I on their paperwork? And did this minister order this raid? Hear, hear.
Minister of Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to the member opposite for the question. I don't have knowledge of the incident of which you speak, but I will take it under advisement and get back to you.
Member supplemental.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It's not surprising that the Public Safety Minister doesn't know, because this doesn't fall to his ministry. The reality is this gets so much worse. Mr. Speaker, during this raid, conservation officers forced a woman who required a lavatory to urinate under surveillance of an officer, and then denied her the privacy to shower so that she could clean up and head off to work. They detained people without cause. They destroyed property and embarrassed my constituent and his family in a community where they are very well known. This isn't law enforcement, Mr. Speaker. It is harassment and intimidation. Does this minister support the flagrant abuse of power, and is this what ranchers, guide outfitters and residents should expect from this new government?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you again to the member for the question. I'll take your question under advisement and get back to you.
Member for Delta South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on December 9th, 2024, without consulting residents and tenure holders, this government announced 9 wind power projects. The BC Cattlemen's Association has raised serious concerns about the lack of transparency and the removal of environmental assessments. These projects are being developed on Crown land that supports BC's ranching industry, grazing tenures, and critical wildlife habitats. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, why is this government ramming through industrial-scale wind projects without consulting the communities that shoulder the consequences?
Minister of Energy.
Well, Honourable Speaker, as I think everyone knows in BC, in particular at this moment, when our province and our country are under attack by the U.S. administration, that we need more energy in BC.
That was before the tariffs. Yeah.
And they'll know, Honourable Speaker, that we need, and apparently, Honourable Speaker, the opposition agrees with this on some days of the week, we need more projects to go ahead more efficiently and more quickly. In the case of these wind projects, Honourable Speaker, which are dramatically less expensive than they were in 2009, create jobs all over British Columbia, will deliver low-cost wind power. We are moving ahead with these projects, Honourable Speaker.
Members, you already know the answer. What's the point of asking questions? Let him answer then. Please.
All right. In this case, all of these projects will go through a significant review around permitting, Honourable Speaker. that will address the issues that are appropriate to these projects. Wind power projects have gone under environmental assessment in the past. We know what those issues are, but we also need to proceed, Honourable Speaker. We also need the energy, Honourable Speaker. We also need to advance clean energy at a time, Honourable Speaker, when other parts of the world are advancing other agendas. And we're going to continue to do it, Honourable Speaker. This is about developing BC. This is about a sustainable economy. This is about jobs all over the province, Honourable Speaker. And I'm surprised that the opposition has become on these questions the party of no.
Delta supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, Mr. Speaker, this government talks about listening to British Columbians, but they are bulldozing ahead with industrial wind farms on Crown land. They've done this without consulting the ranchers and the communities who rely on this land. Worse, Mr. Speaker, they've eliminated environmental assessments altogether. Mr. Speaker, here is NDP environmental hypocrisy at its best. No reviews, no accountability, just a blank check for projects that could devastate BC's watersheds, BC's wildlife, and species at risk. Mr. Speaker, cattle will not stand underneath windmills. Right. What do cows know that this Premier doesn't?
Minister.
Well, thank you, Honourable Speaker. And in my time in this House since the election, Honourable Speaker, I've listened again and again to members of the opposition side talk about delays, talk about permitting, talk about red tape, Honourable Speaker. Talk about hypocrisy, Honourable Speaker. We are proceeding with clean energy projects that help build BC's economy, and they're against it, Honourable Speaker. This is a time when we need to fight for energy independence and energy sovereignty, and they're against it, Honourable Speaker. We have significant, Honourable Speaker.
Members.
Welcome. The member for Kelowna, one of the projects is near his community, Honourable Speaker. I'd be interested to know where he stands, not on the theory of going ahead with projects, but on the fact of it. Will he stand up in the House and support economic development in Kelowna, Honourable Speaker, economic development for First Nations, or is he against it, Honourable Speaker? This is a paper opposition, Honourable Speaker. We are fighting for the future of BC's economy, and they are against it, Honourable Speaker.
Members. Abbotsford West.
Well, let's change the channel. Select standing committees play a crucial role in ensuring transparency and accountability by engaging the public, yet this government refuses to recall them. Why does this government operate in secret and continue to make decisions for the public without their input? This government won't even hold a meeting without forcing people to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement. In fact, this government has signed more NDAs than all the governments in BC's history. Mr. Speaker, why is the NDP so intent in shutting out the public and hiding in secrecy?
Premier.
Yes, Honourable Speaker. Members opposite may recall, I'm not sure, I worked at the BC Civil Liberties Association for a period of time. And during the time, published a great handbook.
Members.
Published a great handbook educating British Columbians about the rights. Glad to talk to the member about it. But during that time, there was the Jacansky inquiry. There was a man who was involved in altercation with police at YVR. He died. And coming out of that, the then BC Liberal government decided to reform police laws. So they invited the Civil Liberties Association to come in and consult on the legislation that they were preparing. And guess what? Just guess. You'll never guess what they asked me to sign, Honourable Speaker.
Member for North Island, please.
You'll never guess what they asked me to sign, Honourable Speaker. They asked me to sign...
Members, are you really interested in listening to some answers or not? We can shut it down right now if you like. Otherwise, stay quiet. wasting your own time. Premier will include.
You'll never guess what they asked me to sign, Honourable Speaker. They asked me to sign a non-disclosure agreement.
Member supplemental.
Well, the Committee of Aboriginal Affairs hasn't met since 2003. Oh, and the Committee of Legislative Initiatives hasn't met since 2010. This government refuses to let the public in on their plans for our province. No wonder they're known as the most secretive government, according to the Canadian Association of Journalists. Mr. Speaker, when will this government recall committees and stop operating behind closed doors?
Premier.
Well, I know the public is glad for the member's transparency about his second salary, Honourable Speaker. But he's not earning his pay today. 2003 to 2017 and 2010 to 2017, the Leader of the Opposition was on this side of the House. In fact, he was the Minister for Indigenous Relations. If the member wants to strike these committees, I encourage him to talk to the House Leader about getting these committees going. I think committees provide a great opportunity for British Columbians to hear about the issues. That's why we're engaged in so many committees with the members of the opposition.
Member for Columbia River Revelstoke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this government likes to champion themselves as leaders with reconciliation with Indigenous peoples in BC. Recently, the Métis Nation of BC was told that core funding for K-12 education programs would be slashed by 2/3. Mr. Speaker, my question to any minister in government through you is a simple one. On what planet would this be considered fair and just reconciliation with Indigenous people?
Minister of Education.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker, and I want to thank the member for the question, which is just simply not accurate. We are continuing to work with Indigenous communities all across the province to ensure that funding is directly targeted to support culture, to support language, to support the support needs that their members have. We are firmly committed to reconciliation, which is why we've created the Indigenous Education Councils alongside school boards, so that we can directly connect and work with local nations, with Indigenous partners, to ensure that we are providing those supports that they need.
Member supplemental.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do have the letter from the Métis Nation of BC, which shows they're getting a 66% cut in their funding. This government is willing to spend $118,000 celebrating bureaucrats, but is unwilling to properly fund Métis education. The remaining funding is $2 per child. Will this government reverse this heartless cut to Métis people and their families and fully fund Métis education?
Minister of Education.
Thank you, Speaker. And again, the member is just simply not correct. We are continuing to support Indigenous education in targeted ways. We have created the Indigenous Education Councils alongside First Nations, alongside Indigenous partners, to ensure that we are directly targeting funding for culture, for language, and for supports, and we are going to continue to do that.
Anybody else? Member for Langley Abbotsford.
Mr. Speaker, the Kootenay ferry strike is approaching its 5th month without a resolution. We learned the other day negotiation talks have broken down. There are only 3 sailings for these communities that depend on this ferry for their livelihood and well-being. Mr. Speaker, will this government at the very least commit to pushing this route up to 5 sailings a day while the negotiations continue?
Minister of Labour.
Thank you very much,
Honourable Speaker, and thank you to the member for the question. Look, I understand that people in the Kootenays rely on the ferry service, and I understand they are very frustrated with the ongoing dispute. And I have been very clear in this House and outside of this House that it is my expectation that both parties will work diligently and with urgency to resolve their collective bargaining dispute. And that, frankly, is what I expect to be happening. I understand that people in the Kootenays need that ferry, and we need those parties to be at the table to get a deal and get things back to normal.
Member supplemental.
Mr. Speaker, this chaos in the Kootenays must end. There's a 23% increase over 3 years. Well, British Columbians don't have that same offer to them. The operator has offered 8% the first year, second, 2% the second, 13% the third. BCGU wants 13%, 8%, then 2%. People's lives are in chaos. And this minister, this government, and this local MLA are doing nothing. Mr. Speaker, to the Minister of Labour, will she do the right thing and appoint a mediator and end this strike?
Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The people of the Kootenays deserve accessible, affordable, readily available transportation. The Minister and her team are working to ensure that both sides reach a deal at the table and get things moving again. Now, the member's got great passion, and rightly so, about economic challenges in the Kootenays. Our whole province, in fact, our whole country, is facing a major economic challenge right now, coming from the President of the United States, which is why I would love to see.
Calm down. You should stop talking. Premier, conclude, please.
I'd love to see the same passion from the opposition fighting the tariffs, fighting Donald Trump, but instead we saw the health critic for the opposition party.
Members.
Bring that passion to all British Columbians. Don't sit beside a YouTuber who says, quote, They know who she sat beside. That's why
Opposition House Leader, could you please ask your members to be in order? Calm down. Order in the House.
Panel with a YouTuber that said, quote, I'm going to do my best to buy American products so the idiots who are buying into Trudeau's Team Canada BS have less impact. Quote, I don't want Trump to hold back. Any suffering will be because of Trudeau, not Trump. And called the Prime Minister, quote, the Governor of Canada. I can't wait for the opposition to have the same passion for defending all British Columbians as they rightly do for defending the people of the Kootenays.
The bell ends the question period. Member?
Premier to make an apology. He made a false statement. I am not taking a second salary, and I'd like his apology, please, made public.
Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. It's easy to get confused. I apologize to the member if he is in fact not taking a second salary. If he's not, I was incorrect. Thank you.
Thank you. The bell ends the question period. Madam Clerk.
Orders of the day.
Government House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I call motion number 9, sitting on the order paper in my name, that will split the House into two sections. Section A, the Little House, and Section B, the Chamber.
Members, the question is adoption of motion 9 on the order paper. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Minister.
And that, my friends, is it for the day.
The opposition House Leader, understanding concerns about sitting on Tuesdays until 9 o'clock, and I have committed that we will adjourn at 6:30 on Tuesdays for the rest of the session.
Honourable members, the Government House Leader has moved motion 10. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion. Ayes have it. Motion carried.
So there's a
on division.
example, like everyone.
Government House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I call third reading Bill number 3, Protected Areas of British Columbia Amendment Act.
Member, the question is third reading of Bill number 3. Minister? Minister.
I move third reading, Honourable Speaker.
Member, the question is third reading of Bill number 3, Protected Areas of British Columbia Amendment Act 2025. Those in favor indicate aye. Oppose? Motion carried. Bill number 3, 2025 Protected Areas of British Columbia Amendment Act has been read third time and has passed. Government House Leader.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I call second reading Bill number 6, Supply Act number 1, 2025.
People be getting up and walking out. They just got no time for this. My friends, I'd like to say thank you. I'm going to get out of here. Put the wind turbine in Vancouver. Put the wind turbine in Vancouver, just on like the New Westminster, just on the side of the river, and just blow everyone off into the ocean that's weak. Can't stand up straight. They've got no backbone. Push them all off into the ocean. Give them a swim. See who can stand up. Anyways, my friends, thank you so much for joining in. Shelley, you're awesome. I look forward to doing this more. God bless.